The great chamber floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive structure, built by a dozen different species over 3,000 years. Inside, representatives from 47 civilized worlds gathered for an emergency meeting. The air processors worked overtime to maintain the different atmospheres each species needed. Some delegates wore breathing masks. Others sat in enclosed pods filled with their homeworld's air. War Prime Krathax of the Vraxian Empire stood at the center platform. He was nearly 3 meters tall, covered in thick armor plates that had evolved naturally on his body. His people were warriors born and bred for conquest. Behind him, holographic displays showed a small blue and green world orbiting a yellow star. "This planet," Krathax announced, his voice booming through translation devices, "is called Earth. It has a population of approximately 8 billion sentient beings. They call themselves humans. We claim it for the Vraxian Empire." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others showed no reaction at all. Ambassador Thelanara of the Cathari people rose gracefully. Her species resembled tall, slender birds with iridescent feathers that changed color with their emotions. Right now, those feathers showed concerna, deep blue mixed with streaks of orange. "War Prime," she said softly, "the Galactic Council has protocols. New species must be contacted peacefully. We must offer them knowledge, trade, and the opportunity to join our civilization. You cannot simply invade them." Krathax laughed. The sound was harsh and grating. "Your protocols apply to council members, Ambassador. These humans are not members. They have not even requested membership. Therefore, they are outside your jurisdiction." Thelanara's feathers darkened. She knew he was technically correct. The Council's laws only protected those who had formally joined or requested protection. It was a loophole that aggressive species had exploited before. Councillor Vex of the Technocracy spoke next. His mechanical body hummed with power as he accessed the shared data network. "Our initial scans show the humans have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. They have no energy shields. Their weapons are primitive chemical propellants and early plasma technology. They pose no military threat." "Exactly," Krathax said with satisfaction. "They are ripe for conquest. In 7 cycles, my fleet will arrive in their system. They will surrender or be destroyed. Either way, Earth will become a Vraxian colony world." "This is madness," Thelanara protested. "We are supposed to be better than this. We are supposed to bring peace to the galaxy, not stand by while aggressive species prey on the weak." "Then you should have brought them into the Council sooner," Krathax replied. "But you did not. They are free territory." Before Thelanara could respond, a figure emerged from the shadows at the back of the chamber. The observer wore simple gray robes that covered most of its body. No one knew exactly what species the observers were. They rarely spoke, preferring to watch and record. But when they did speak, wise delegates listened. "War Prime Krathax," the observer said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "I have studied the humans. I have reviewed their history, their culture, their nature. I must warn you, they are not what they appear to be." Krathax turned to face the observer. "They are primitives." "What warning could you possibly offer?" "They are apex predators," the observer said calmly. "Do you understand what that means?" On their world, they had no natural predators. They hunted everything. They conquered their entire planet through violence and determination. They fought wars that killed millions of their own kind. They created weapons that could destroy their entire world 100 times over. "And yet they still live," Krathax said dismissively. "Clearly, these weapons were not so effective." "You misunderstand," the observer continued. "They created these weapons, perfected them, deployed them, and then they chose not to use them. They made a conscious decision to step back from total annihilation. They turned their planet from a battlefield into a garden. They chose mercy over extinction." Krathax snorted. "Then they are weak. They had the power to dominate, and they chose peace instead. That makes them easy prey." No, the observer said quietly. It makes them dangerous. A species that can create such destruction and then restrain itself has learned discipline. They know the cost of war. And when forced to fight, they will use everything they have learned. The War Prime's armor plates rattled with amusement. You speak in riddles, observer. I speak in facts. My empire has conquered 12 star systems. We have defeated species with advanced technology, with powerful weapons, with superior numbers. These humans have none of those advantages. They will fall like all the others. Thelanara tried one more time. War Prime, please reconsider. Even if you succeed, what message does this send to the galaxy? That might makes right? That the strong can prey on the weak without consequence? It sends exactly that message, Krathax replied. Because it is true. The galaxy respects strength. The Council preaches peace, but peace is only possible when maintained by force. You know this even if you pretend otherwise. Several delegates nodded. It was an uncomfortable truth. The Council maintained peace through a collective defense agreement. Attack one member, and you faced all of them. But non-members had no such protection. Councillor Vex spoke again. I propose we observe the situation. If the War Prime is correct, the conflict will be brief and we can negotiate membership for the survivors. If the observer is correct and the humans prove more formidable, we can intervene at that time. Unacceptable, Thelanara said firmly. By then it may be too late. Thousands, perhaps millions of humans could die. And thousands, perhaps millions, have died in conflicts throughout the galaxy, Vex replied without emotion. We cannot save everyone, Ambassador. We can only maintain order among those who accept our authority. The vote was called. 28 delegates voted for non-intervention. 15 voted to offer the humans immediate protection. 4 abstained. The decision was made. Krathax bowed mockingly to the assembly. The Vraxian Empire thanks the Council for its wisdom. We will remember this when Earth is brought into the civilized galaxy as our vassal state. As the War Prime left the chamber, the observer approached Thelanara. The ambassador's feathers had turned a dark purple, the color of mourning among her people. You tried? The observer said gently. It was not enough, Thelanara whispered. We are supposed to be better than this. We are what we are, the observer replied. But I will tell you something, Ambassador. I have studied 3,000 civilizations across this galaxy. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve from savagery to enlightenment. And in all my observations, I have never seen a species quite like the humans. Why? Thelanara asked. Because they remember, the observer said. They remember every war, every atrocity, every mistake. They build monuments to their failures so they will never forget. They teach their children about the horrors they are capable of. And they have built their entire society around the idea that such horrors must never happen again. Then they are peaceful, Thelanara said hopefully. No, the observer corrected. They are restrained. There is a difference. Peace is the absence of violence. Restraint is violence deliberately withheld. And when that restraint is broken, the observer paused. I fear the War Prime has made a terrible mistake. He sees weakness where there is only patience. He sees prey where there are sleeping predators. What do you think will happen? Thelanara asked. The observer's robes rippled, perhaps with a shrug. I think the galaxy is about to learn why the humans survived when so many other apex predators went extinct. They did not survive by being weak. They survived by being adaptable, by being ruthless when necessary, and by never, ever forgetting a threat. In orbit around Earth, 300 Vraxian warships began their journey. On Earth, humanity remained unaware of what was coming. They continued their lives, their work, their dreams of exploring the stars peacefully. They would not remain unaware for long, and when they learned that the galaxy had chosen not to protect them, that they had been deemed acceptable casualties in the name of political convenience, they would remember that lesson. They would remember it for a very long time. The alarm started at 0347 Earth Standard Time, Deep space monitoring stations detected the incoming fleet before it reached the outer planets. Within minutes, every military installation on Earth and throughout human-controlled space went to maximum alert. Admiral Marcus Wheeler stood in the command center of Unity Station, humanity's largest orbital defense platform. Around him, dozens of officers worked at their stations, coordinating responses, gathering data, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. How many? Wheeler asked. Final count is 300 ships, sir, Lieutenant Park reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook slightly. They're big. Much bigger than anything we've built? Wheeler nodded slowly. Humanity had 12 defense stations like Unity. They had 43 ships that could be called warships, though most were really just exploration vessels with weapons attached. Against 300 dedicated military ships, they had no chance. Are they communicating? Wheeler asked. Yes, sir. Patching it through now. The main view screen flickered. A massive alien appeared, covered in natural armor, with 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. When it spoke, the translation software converted the sounds into English. Primitive humans of Earth, I am War Prime Krathax of the Vraxian Empire. Your world has been claimed by our people. You will surrender immediately. Your ships will power down. Your weapons will be disabled. You will submit to Vraxian authority or you will be destroyed. You have 1 of your hours to respond. The transmission ended. Wheeler looked around the command center. Every eye was on him. They were waiting for orders, waiting to be told what to do. Some probably expected him to surrender. After all, what choice did they have? Lieutenant Park, Wheeler said calmly, send the following message to all human vessels and stations. Condition red, hostile action imminent. All personnel to battle stations. Authorization code Wheeler Alpha 7. Sir? Park asked uncertainly. Do it, Wheeler said firmly. She complied. Then she waited. Now, Wheeler continued, open a channel to the Vraxian fleet. Channel open, sir. Wheeler looked directly at the camera that would transmit his image to the aliens. He thought about his daughter, safe on Earth below. He thought about his husband, who worked in the Mars colonies. He thought about humanity's future, about everything they had built, everything they hoped to become. Negative, Wheeler said simply. Prepare for consequences. He cut the transmission. Sir, Park said quietly, what are we doing? Wheeler turned to face her. We're buying time. Every minute we fight is another minute for Earth to prepare. Every ship we damage is 1 less ship that reaches our planet. And we're sending a message. What message? Park asked. That humanity doesn't surrender, Wheeler replied. The Vraxian response was immediate. 200 ships moved toward the human defense stations. 100 continued toward Earth itself. They thought it would be quick. They thought the humans would break and run. They were wrong. Unity Station fired first. Human weapons were primitive by galactic standards missiles with conventional explosives, magnetic accelerators that fired solid slugs, early plasma cannons that overheated after a few shots. But humans had learned to make the most of what they had. The first Vraxian cruiser took a missile salvo directly to its engines. The ship went dark, tumbling through space. The second cruiser returned fire, its energy beams tearing through Unity Station's hull. Sections of the station vented atmosphere. Alarms screamed. Hull breach on level 7 through 12, someone shouted. Seal them off, Wheeler ordered. Keep firing. The other defense stations joined the fight. Human ships, small and fast, darted between the massive Vraxian vessels, targeting engines and weapon systems. They couldn't destroy the alien ships easily, but they could cripple them. Captain Sarah Shun commanded the destroyer Resilient. Her ship was one of humanity's newest, equipped with the best weapons they had. It still wasn't enough. 2 Vraxian cruisers had her ship bracketed, firing from both sides. We can't take much more of this, her tactical officer reported. Chun looked at the damage reports. Hull integrity at 30%. Weapons mostly offline. Life support failing in the aft section. They were finished. All hands, Chun said over the ship-wide intercom. "Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. You have 2 minutes." Her crew didn't argue. They had trained for this. They knew what to do. Chun stayed on the bridge with 3 volunteers, her tactical officer, her helmsman, and her engineer. They waited until the escape pods were away. Then Chun gave her final order. "Set a collision course," she said quietly. "Maximum acceleration. Target the larger cruiser." "Course set," the helmsman confirmed. The resilience engines burned at maximum power. The ship accelerated toward the Vraxian cruiser, crossing the distance in seconds. The aliens tried to change course, tried to destroy the incoming ship, but they were too slow. The Resilient struck the cruiser at a significant fraction of light speed. The impact vaporized both ships in a flash of energy that lit up the darkness of space. Captain Chun's last transmission reached Unity Station 3 seconds after impact. Just 2 words, for Earth. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships that were too damaged to fight effectively became weapons themselves. Crews evacuated and the ships were sent crashing into Vraxian vessels. It was wasteful. It was desperate. But it worked. The Vraxians had never encountered an enemy that weaponized their own deaths. They had never fought a species that would sacrifice everything rather than retreat. It shocked them. More than that, it frightened them. On Unity Station, Wheeler watched the tactical display. The defense stations were falling one by one. Human ships were being destroyed, but they were taking Vraxian vessels with them. Almost 100 alien ships had been destroyed or crippled. "Sir," Park said, "the Vraxians are pulling back. They're regrouping outside weapons range." Wheeler allowed himself a small smile. They expected easy prey? They found predators instead. What now? Park asked. "Now we prepare for round 2, Wheeler said. "Because they'll come back. And when they do, we need to hurt them even worse." But the most significant moment came when a damaged Vraxian battalion attempted to board Defense Station 7. They cut through the hull and sent 200 soldiers inside. They expected to find frightened humans ready to surrender. Instead, they found Commander James Liu and his crew. Liu had ordered all civilians evacuated. Then he had his people set explosives throughout the station. They waited in the central core, weapons ready. The Vraxians fought their way through the station, deck by deck. They had superior armor and weapons. They cut down human defenders ruthlessly. But with each level they advanced. They moved closer to the station's reactor core. Liu waited until almost all the Vraxian soldiers were inside. Then he transmitted one final message to the Vraxian fleet. "You want to know what humans are?" he said calmly. "We're the species that looked at nuclear weapons and decided they weren't final enough. We're the ones who learned to split atoms and then figured out how to make them dance. Watch closely. This is what determination looks like." He pressed the detonator. Defense Station 7 disappeared in an explosion that registered on every sensor in the system. 200 Vraxian soldiers died instantly. 3 Vraxian ships that were too close to the station were caught in the blast and destroyed. On the Vraxian flagship, War Prime Krothax watched the tactical displays with growing disbelief. He had lost 97 ships. 97 ships against an enemy that should have been helpless? What are they? His second-in-command asked in a shaking voice. Krothax didn't answer. He was remembering what the observer had said in the council chamber. About apex predators. About a species that had learned to restrain violence but had never forgotten how to employ it. "All ships," Krothax ordered, "withdraw to the outer system. We regroup and analyze their tactics." His officers looked relieved. They had expected a quick victory. Instead, they had found a nightmare. On Earth, the governments received the reports from the battle. They knew this was only the beginning. The Vraxians would return, probably with more ships. Humanity had won the first encounter, but they had paid a terrible price. Emergency sessions were called. The United Nations, the Mars Colonial Administration, the belt mining consortiums, all of them met to coordinate a response, and in secret military facilities around Earth and throughout human space, scientists and engineers began opening sealed plans Plans for weapons that humanity had developed but had promised never to use. Plans for technologies that violated every treaty humans had signed among themselves. They had promised never to use these weapons on each other, but nobody said anything about aliens. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity was truly capable of, and once they learned, they would never forget. The Galactic Council's observation satellites recorded everything. They watched as Earth transformed in ways that should have been impossible. Ambassador Thelanara sat in her private quarters, reviewing the data streams. Her feathers had turned white, the color of shock among her people. Beside her, the observer stood silently, also watching. "This is happening too fast," Thelanara whispered. "Political unity takes years, sometimes decades. They have dozens of different governments, hundreds of cultural groups, thousands of languages. How are they doing this?" On the screens, images from Earth showed massive changes. Factory complexes that had produced consumer goods yesterday were manufacturing weapons today. Automobile plants were building armored vehicles. Electronics facilities were assembling guidance systems for missiles. Shipyards were working around the clock, constructing new vessels. But the most shocking part was the political coordination. The United Nations General Assembly had held an emergency session that lasted 16 hours straight. At the end of it, every nation on Earth had signed a single document, the Terra Defense Compact. "They've experienced this before," the observer said quietly. "Many times in their history, they have faced existential threats. They know how to set aside their differences when survival is at stake. But the speed," Thelanara protested, "the efficiency. We estimated it would take them months to organize a proper military response." "You estimated based on how other species respond," the observer replied. "Humans are different. They have cultural memory of total war. They know what it looks like, what it requires, and how to achieve it." Thelanara switched to another data feed. This one showed human military installations. The weapons being deployed made her hearts race with fear. "Are those kinetic kill vehicles?" she asked. "Yes," the observer confirmed. "Asteroids fitted with guidance systems and engines. Simple but devastatingly effective. Each one carries enough kinetic energy to destroy a city. And those?" Thelanara pointed at another display, biological agents. "They've had those for centuries. Diseases that could sterilize entire planets. They developed them, perfected them, and then banned their use in something they call the Biological Weapons Convention. But they're deploying them now," Thelanara said. "Against aliens, yes. Their treaties only cover use against other humans. Legally, they're not breaking their own laws." Thelanara's feathers shifted to red anger. "This is what we prevented by staying out of it. This is what our neutrality has created. We forced them to become monsters." "No," the observer said firmly. "We've reminded them that they already were monsters. They just chose not to be. There's a difference." On Earth, President Elena Volkov of the Eurasian Federation addressed a joint session of the new Terra Defense Council. Representatives from every nation watched, either in person or via secure channels. "The Vraxian Empire has declared war on humanity," Volkov said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes were hard. "They assumed we would surrender. They assumed we were weak. They were wrong." She pressed a control and a holographic display appeared, showing military assets. "In the past 72 hours, we have mobilized every resource at our disposal. Factories that made civilian goods now make weapons. Shipyards that built cargo haulers now build warships. Scientists who studied medicine now study how to kill efficiently." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Some of you may question this transformation. Some may say we're becoming what we fought so hard not to be. But I remind you, we did not start this war. We did not choose this path. It was forced upon us by a galaxy that saw our peace as weakness." Prime Minister Obi of the African Union stood. "Madame President, the Council has reports of weapon systems that violate our own treaties. Chemical agents, biological weapons. Nuclear devices far more powerful than anything we've deployed in centuries." "Yes," Volkov confirmed. "We are preparing to use them." A murmur ran through the assembly. Some delegates looked horrified. Others looked grimly satisfied. Understand this, Volkov continued. We kept these weapons in reserve not because we couldn't make them, not because we didn't understand their power. We kept them locked away because we knew exactly what they could do. We remembered our own history, our own mistakes. We chose restraint. She looked around the room, meeting each delegate's eyes. But the Verxians and their Galactic Council decided our restraint meant weakness. They decided our civilization could be crushed without consequence. So now we will show them what we restrained. We will show them what humanity is capable of when we stop holding back. And after, Prime Minister Obi asked quietly, after we use these weapons, after we become what we swore never to be again, what then? Then we remember, Volkov said. We remember what we did and why we did it. We build monuments to our actions. We teach our children about the cost. And we hope we never have to do it again. But we will do it now, because the alternative is extinction. The vote was unanimous. The Terra Defense Compact would authorize any means necessary to defend humanity. In the Mars colonies, General Jiang Wei coordinated the deployment of humanity's space forces. The initial defense had cost them dearly. 8 of their 12 defense stations destroyed, 37 ships lost. But they had bought time. Status report, Jiang ordered. Commander Peters pulled up a tactical display. We've completed the retrofit of 72 civilian vessels. They're not pretty, but they're armed and mobile. The new shipyards at Jupiter Station have completed their first batch of dedicated warships, 12 vessels equipped with our latest weapons. Not enough, Jiang said. No, sir, but it's a start. More importantly, we've deployed the perimeter system, Jiang nodded. The perimeter system was humanity's ultimate deterrent. Automated weapon platforms hidden throughout human space, each carrying warheads powerful enough to sterilize a planet. They were linked to a dead man's switch if Earth fell. If humanity's government was destroyed, the system would activate automatically. It was insane by any rational measure. But it guaranteed that anyone who destroyed humanity would pay an unthinkable price. The Vraxian fleet is still regrouping in the outer system, Peters continued. But our long-range sensors have detected something else. A second Vraxian fleet is en route. Twice the size of the first one. Jiang wasn't surprised. The Vraxians had expected an easy victory. When they didn't get it, they would apply overwhelming force. Then we don't wait for them, Jiang said. Sir, we take the war to them? They want to invade Earth? Fine, but Earth isn't the only battlefield. We'll hit their supply lines, their bases, their homeworlds if necessary. Peters looked shocked. Sir, we don't have the ships for offensive operations. We'll use what we have, Jiang replied. Select our fastest ships, load them with our most advanced weapons, and send them into Vraxian space. That's suicide, Peters said quietly. Maybe, Jiang agreed, but it will force them to defend their own territory. It will spread their forces thin. And it will send a message: if you come to our home, we will come to yours. The operation launched within days. 15 human ships jumped into Vraxian territory and began attacking military installations. They didn't try to conquer territory. They just destroyed what they could and kept moving. The Vraxian Empire scrambled to respond. They had to pull ships from the Second Invasion Fleet to defend their own systems. It was exactly what Jiang had hoped for. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the delegates watched these developments with growing alarm. Counselor Vex accessed his data networks, running calculations. This is unprecedented, he announced. A pre-council species mounting an effective military campaign against an established empire. The humans should have surrendered by now. They've done more than mount a defense, another delegate added. They've gone on offense. They're attacking Vraxian space. Ambassador Thelanara felt a cold satisfaction. Perhaps the War Prime will reconsider his arrogance. It's more serious than that, the observer said. All the delegates turned to look. The observer rarely spoke in full council sessions. What do you mean? The council leader asked. The humans have deployed weapon systems that violate their own ethics, the observer explained. They have crossed lines they swore never to cross. They have become what they fear, and they did so in days, not years. This suggests two things. Which are? The leader prompted. First, they were always capable of this transformation. They had the weapons ready. They had the plans prepared. They just chose not to use them until forced. And second? Thelanara asked. Second, the observer said quietly, they will not forget that the galaxy forced them to this choice. They will not forget that we stood by and watched while they were invaded. They will not forget that our laws protected them only if they bent knee to us first. Are you saying they will seek revenge? Counselor Vex asked. I'm saying they will never trust the Council again, the observer replied. And a humanity that doesn't trust the Galactic Order is a humanity that will forge its own path. By force, if necessary, the Council chamber fell silent. They had thought they were witnessing a simple territorial dispute. Now they were beginning to understand they had made a catastrophic mistake, on Earth, in the secret command center buried. Deep beneath Geneva, President Volkov watched the tactical displays. Human ships were hitting Vraxian targets throughout their empire. The Galactic Council chamber filled with urgent chatter. Every delegate had received the same transmission from Earth, and now they gathered to discuss its implications. Ambassador Thelanara arrived early, her feathers a mix of colors that indicated confusion and concern. The council leader called the session to order. We convened to address a formal communication from the human species of Earth. The message was broadcast on all channels and appears to be meant for the entire galaxy. The main view screen activated. A human woman appeared, dressed in a simple military uniform. Her face was calm, almost peaceful, but her eyes were hard as steel. I am Admiral Rebecca Hayes of the Terra Defense Forces, she said. This message is directed to the Galactic Council and to all civilized species. The Vraxian Empire invaded our space without provocation. They attacked our installations and killed our people. When we sought protection from the Council, we were informed that we fell outside your jurisdiction. Thelanara's feathers darkened with shame. Every word was true. We accepted that decision, Hayes continued. We understand that politics requires difficult choices. But understand this, in return we have made our own difficult choices. The display changed, showing star maps with highlighted regions throughout the galaxy. In the past 6 days, we have positioned weapons platforms in 47 star systems. These platforms are fully automated and linked to our command network. Each platform carries multiple antimatter warheads. Each warhead is sufficient to sterilize a planet's surface. Shocked gasps filled the chamber. Counselor Vex immediately accessed his networks, trying to verify the claim. His mechanical body hummed with increased processing power. Confirmed, he announced. We have detected anomalous objects in 17 systems so far. Based on their positions and energy signatures, they match the human description. Admiral Hayes' image continued speaking. These platforms have a simple function. If Earth falls, if our government is destroyed, if humanity is wiped out, they activate automatically. The systems they're positioned in are not random. We've selected targets based on their strategic value, their economic importance, and their political influence. The display zoomed in on specific systems. Thelanara felt her blood turn cold when she recognized them. 3 Vraxian colony worlds. 2 major trade hubs. 4 systems that belong to council members. You've positioned weapons in our territories? A delegate shouted. This is an act of war. No, Hayes replied, though she couldn't hear the delegate. The transmission was pre-recorded. This is deterrence. You may call it insane. You may call it excessive. But we call it necessary. Because we learned long ago that the only way to prevent total war is to make it unthinkable. We studied your histories, Hayes said. We know that most council species developed advanced technology before they developed truly destructive weapons. You never had to face the possibility of your own extinction by your own hands. We did, multiple times. We built weapons that could end all life on Earth, and we came very close to using them. The display showed images from human history. Cities destroyed by nuclear weapons. Landscapes poisoned by chemical agents. Mass graves from biological warfare. We learned from those mistakes, Hayes continued. We learned that the only defense against total destruction is to make everyone understand that destruction works both ways. You don't negotiate with predators by showing weakness. You make them understand that attacking you means their own death. Counselor Vex spoke up. This is a clear violation of galactic law. Unauthorized weapons deployment in council space. Threats against member species. We are not members, Thelanara interrupted quietly. We made that very clear when we refused them protection. The council leader glared at her but couldn't argue the point. Hayes' transmission continued. The Vrexian Empire is preparing a second invasion fleet. We know this. We are prepared to defend ourselves. But understand, if Earth falls, those platforms activate. If we are destroyed, we take our enemies with us. And we include in that category anyone who supported the invasion or failed to prevent it when they had the power to do so. This is madness, someone shouted. Yes, Hayes agreed, as if responding to the outburst. It is madness, but it's effective madness. We learned this doctrine when we still fought among ourselves. We called it mutually assured destruction, and it kept us from destroying our own world for over 200 years. The transmission ended. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some delegates demanded immediate action against humanity. Others argued for caution. A few suggested they should have protected Earth when they had the chance. War Prime Krathax, who had been forced to attend this session, stood from his designated area. His armor plates were scarred from recent battles, and several of his people were missing, killed in humanity's counterattacks on Vraxian space. The humans are bluffing, he announced. They would not actually destroy entire worlds. They claim to be civilized. Civilized species do not commit genocide. Are you willing to bet your homeworld on that assumption? Thelanara asked coldly. Krathax turned to face her. My people are warriors. We do not fear death. Then you are fools, the observer said, stepping forward from the shadows. The humans are not bluffing. They have already shown they will sacrifice themselves to hurt their enemies. Multiple ships, multiple stations. Hundreds of their own people died carrying out suicide attacks against your forces. That was combat, Krathax argued. This is different. Why? The observer asked. Because the scale is larger? Because more will die? The principle is the same. They would rather die taking their enemies with them than surrender and live as slaves. Unacceptable, the council leader declared. We cannot allow one species to hold the galaxy hostage. Then you should have protected them, Thelanara said, her voice ringing through the chamber. You should have extended council protection when they asked for it. You should have intervened when the Vraxians invaded. But you did not. And now we face the consequences of that choice. Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded throughout the station. Counselor Vex accessed the emergency channels and his mechanical body went still. What is it? The council leader demanded. 3 Vraxian colony worlds, Vex said slowly. They've gone dark. All communication cut off. Massive energy readings consistent with antimatter detonation. The chamber fell silent. Every delegate stared at the displays showing the 3 systems. Then one by one, video feeds came online. The colonies had automated emergency beacons that activated in catastrophic events. The images showed devastation. Entire cities reduced to molten craters. Forests turned to ash. Oceans boiling. But there were no bodies. No signs of casualties. The humans evacuated them, Vex said, checking his data. They gave the Vraxians 48 hours warning. Told them to evacuate everyone or face the consequences, and we did not evacuate, Krathax said, his voice hollow. We thought they were bluffing. Those worlds were home to 15 million Vraxians, another delegate said quietly. If they had not evacuated, they would all be dead, Thelanara finished. The humans just demonstrated that their threats are real. They destroyed 3 colonies but gave time to save everyone. They showed mercy even while showing strength where Prime Krathax stood motionless for a long moment. His people had colonized those 3 worlds over 50 years. They had invested massive resources. They had built cities, farms, factories. All of it was gone. The Council will intervene, he said quietly. I request immediate protection for Vraxian worlds. On what grounds? Delanara asked. You started this war. You invaded their space. By your own logic, might makes right. The humans are simply proving they have more might than you anticipated. They are threatening total extinction. Krothax protested. Yes, Felinara agreed. Just as you threatened Earth with conquest and slavery? At least they gave your people a chance to escape. The council leader called for order. We must find a diplomatic solution. This has gone too far, has it? The observer asked. Or has it gone exactly as far as necessary? The humans have made their position clear. Attack Earth and you face destruction. It's a simple equation. The Vraxians can accept this or they can test it. But they cannot claim they weren't warned. A new transmission came through. This time it was War Council President Elena Volkov herself. To the Galactic Council, she said, we understand you are discussing our actions. We understand some of you consider us terrorists or criminals. We do not care about your opinions. We care only about survival. You claim we have gone too far? But consider what we have actually done. We warned the Vraxians 3 times to evacuate those colonies. We gave them 48 hours. We ensured 0 casualties. We destroyed infrastructure, not people. We could have done much worse. The display showed schematics of weapons humanity had developed but not deployed. Biological agents? Nanomachinist swarms? Self-replicating mining drones that could consume entire asteroids and turn them into weapon platforms. We have shown restraint even in our retaliation, Volkov said. But understand this, our restraint has limits. The Vraxian fleet is coming to Earth. If they attack, we will defend ourselves with every weapon we possess. We will not surrender. We will not negotiate peace terms. We will fight until we win or until we die. And if we die, we will make the cost so high that the galaxy will remember humanity for 10,000 years. 6 months had passed since the Vraxian Empire sued for peace. The Galactic Council chamber had been renovated for this occasion, expanded to accommodate new delegates. Today was the formal ceremony that would admit humanity to the Council. Ambassador Thelanara stood near the entrance, her feathers shifting colors nervously. She had spent the last months working directly with human representatives to negotiate the terms of their membership. It had not been a simple process. The observer stood beside her, as silent as always. Are you worried? Delanara asked quietly. Always, the observer replied. But not about what you think. Before Thelanara could ask what that meant, the massive doors opened. The human delegation entered. Admiral Rebecca Hayes led the way, still in her military uniform. Beside her walked diplomat Sarah Okonkwo, a tall woman with intelligent eyes and a warm smile. Behind them came a dozen other human scientists, politicians, military officers, and cultural representatives. They walked to the center of the chamber, where 47 species waited in their designated areas. The council leader, a being that resembled a crystalline structure, spoke first. Humanity of Earth, the leader said through translation devices, you have been invited to join the Galactic Council as a full member with all rights and responsibilities. Do you accept? Sarah Okonkwo stepped forward. We do. But we wish to make a statement first, with the Council's permission. The leader hesitated, then nodded. Proceed. Sarah looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many delegates as possible. When she spoke, her voice was clear and firm. 6 months ago, the Vraxian Empire invaded our space. They came to conquer us, to enslave us, to take our world. When we sought protection from this council, we were told we did not qualify. We were told that only council members deserved protection. We were left to defend ourselves or die. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others maintained neutral expressions. We chose to defend ourselves, Sarah continued. We fought back with everything we had. We took terrible risks. We used weapons we had sworn never to use again. We made threats that terrified even us. And we did all of this because you, the galactic community, decided we were not worth protecting. War Prime Krothak sat in his designated area, surrounded by the remnants of his delegation. The Vraxian Empire had been devastated. 3 colonies destroyed. 57 warships lost. Their economy in ruins. The War Prime himself had been replaced by a civilian government. Though he attended this ceremony as part of the peace terms, "We are grateful," Sarah said. And some delegates looked surprised that the council eventually intervened. "We appreciate that you mediated a peace agreement. But we want you to understand something fundamental about humanity before we join this body." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "We terrify you," Sarah said simply. "We know this. We've seen it in your reports, your diplomatic communications, your private conversations that you thought were secure. You call us dangerous, unstable, violent, and you're not entirely wrong." Admiral Hayes spoke next. "We are dangerous. We admit that freely. We come from a world where life competed brutally for survival. We evolved as apex predators. We hunted everything. We conquered our entire planet through violence and determination. But here's what you need to understand," Sarah continued. "We didn't stop being dangerous because we became weak. We stopped because we became wise. We learned that violence has a cost. We learned that destruction is easy, but creation is hard. We learned that the strongest civilizations are not the ones that can destroy their enemies, but the ones that can choose not to." She walked slowly around the central platform, making eye contact with as many delegates as possible. "You see our weapons and you're afraid?" Sarah said. "You see what we did to the Vraxian colonies and you're terrified of what we might do to you. But you're missing the most important part. We gave them 48 hours to evacuate. We could have destroyed those worlds with everyone on them. We had the power. We had the justification. They invaded our space first. But we chose not to kill millions of innocents." "That's not weakness," Admiral Hayes added. "That's strength. Real strength. The strength to hold power and choose restraint. The strength to be capable of great violence and decide not to use it." Counselor Vex processed this information. His mechanical mind ran through countless scenarios and historical precedents. Finally, he spoke. "You are saying that your restraint is a choice, not a limitation." "Exactly," Sarah confirmed. "We could have been monsters. In our history, we sometimes were, but we learned. We grew. We chose a better path, and then we invaded you," Krothak said quietly from his area. All eyes turned to him. "And you were forced back to that path of violence." "Yes," Sarah said, looking directly at him. "You forced us to remember what we're capable of. You forced us to become warriors again. And now the galaxy knows what humanity can do when we stop restraining ourselves? Is that a threat?" a delegate asked nervously. "No," Sarah replied firmly. "It's a fact. We're not threatening anyone. We're explaining our position. The Vraxian Empire learned a hard lesson. We hope the rest of the galaxy can learn it without needing the same demonstration." "What lesson is that?" Thelanara asked, though she thought she knew the answer. "That mercy is a choice, not a weakness," Sarah said. "That peace-loving people can still defend themselves. That restraint can be temporary. And that the most dangerous species in the galaxy is one that knows how to make war but chooses not to until they have no other choice." The observer stepped forward, speaking for the first time in months. "The humans speak truth. I have studied them extensively. They have the capacity for tremendous violence, yes. But they also have the capacity for tremendous compassion. They fight wars, but they also help their enemies rebuild afterward. They create weapons, but they also create art, music, literature. They are complex in ways most species are not. They scare us," Felinara added, her feathers showing honest emotion, "because they remind us that civilization is fragile, that the peaceful galaxy we've built requires constant effort to maintain, that we cannot take peace for granted." Sarah nodded. "Ambassador Thelanara is right. You've built a good system here. The Council maintains peace through collective security. Attack one member and you face all of them. It works because everyone agrees to the rules. But, Admiral Hayes said, those rules failed us. We weren't members, so we weren't protected. That's a dangerous precedent. It tells aggressive species that non-members are acceptable targets. What do you propose? The Council leader asked. We propose changes to Council law, Sarah said. First, any species that achieves faster than light travel and attempts to contact the Council should be granted provisional protection. Not full membership, but protection from conquest. Second, any member species that invades non-member territory should face immediate sanctions and possible expulsion from the Council. Those changes would significantly alter Council policy. Councillor Vex noted. Yes, Sarah agreed. But they would prevent another situation like ours. They would protect peaceful species from aggressive ones. Isn't that what the Council is supposed to do? The Council leader was silent for a long moment. Finally, it spoke. Your proposals have merit. We will consider them. But first we must complete your admission to the Council. Do you still wish to join? We do, Sarah said. But understand, we're not joining because we need your protection. We've proven we can protect ourselves. We're joining because we believe in the ideals the Council represents. We want to be part of a peaceful galaxy. We want to help maintain order and justice. But we will not be passive members. We will speak up when we see injustice. We will act when we see aggression. And we will never again rely solely on others for our defense. You're saying you'll keep your weapons, a delegate noted. Yes, Admiral Hayes confirmed. We'll maintain our military. We'll keep our defensive platforms. We'll continue developing new technologies. But we'll use them defensively and in accordance with Council law as long as Council law protects everyone fairly. And if it doesn't? Another delegate asked. Then we'll work to change it, Sarah said. Peacefully if possible. But we will not stand by and watch injustice, not after what we experienced. The Council leader made a sound that the translation devices rendered as a sigh. You drive a hard bargain, humans. We learn from hard teachers, Sarah replied, glancing at KRS single quotes X. The vote was called. One by one, delegates cast their votes. Some voted yes enthusiastically. Others voted yes reluctantly. A few abstained. But none voted no. They all understood that rejecting humanity now would make an enemy of the most dangerous species they'd encountered in centuries. The final count was announced. 43 yes. 4 abstentions, 0 no. Humanity was officially a member of the Galactic Council. As the ceremony concluded and delegates began to leave, Thelanara approached the human delegation. Her feathers showed a mix of emotions, relief, concern, and something like hope. I'm glad you joined, she said to Sarah. Despite everything, despite the fear you inspire, I believe you will be good for the Council. You will challenge us. You will make us better. We'll try, Sarah said with a genuine smile. But we'll also learn from you. We're not perfect. We make mistakes. We have our own flaws and limitations.